Welcome to an overview on the 21st Century Community Learning Centers and After-School Safety Enrichment for Teens, Cohort 13 Requests for Applications Overview. My name is Kelly Faustino, and I am an Education Programs Consultant with the California Department of Education. I will be facilitating this webinar today along with my colleague, Tang Zhang. There has been some changes to the Cohort 13 RFA. The intent of this video is to provide an overview of the application process and review the application's major changes. The video will review the following: the 21st Century Community Learning Centers, or 21st CCLC, grant background and purpose, the different grant components and eligibility requirements to apply, major changes from previous cohorts, and the application process. Please note that this is not a comprehensive video. To view all of the requirements, please review the 21st CCLC and 21st CCLC After-School Safety and Enrichment for Teens, Cohort 13 Requests for Applications. Let's begin with the background and purpose of this grant. 21st CCLC is a federal grant in which the California Department of Education administers. It is a 5-year grant authorized by the Every Student Succeeds Act. This grant is not renewable. In California, we split the federal funding into two: 21st CCLC, which is for elementary middle schools, and After School Safety and Enrichment for Teens, also known as ASSETS, which is for our high schools. For Cohort 13, there has been an estimated $18 million allocated for 21st CCLC and an estimated $22 million allocated for 21st CCLC ASSETS programs. The purpose of our 21st CCLC programs is to create community learning centers for elementary and middle school students. These programs provide a safe and supportive environment with a variety of learning opportunities for our students, including but not limited to academic, enrichment, and physical activities, as well as family literacy opportunities. The purpose is not only to help students improve academic achievement, but to provide students with opportunities that will expand their horizons and allow them to thrive. The purpose of our 21st CCLC ASSETS programs are to provide community learning centers for our high school students. Similar to our 21st CCLC programs, our ASSETS programs provide age-appropriate academic, enrichment, and physical activity opportunities to support academic success, college and career readiness, and family engagement.
While both programs are federally funded, they each have unique components and implementation requirements. 21st CCLC applicants are able to apply for different components depending on when they want to run. This includes before school or after school every day that school is in session, during summer, intersession, or weekends, and a grant to provide access to our programs for students, known as Equitable Access. Applicants must apply for an after-school-based program in order to apply for any of the other components listed. It is also important to note that grantees who currently have an after-school-based program from a previous cohort may not apply for before-school-based, before-school summer supplemental, after-school summer supplemental, or equitable access in this RFA. ASSETS programs have a single grant and are able to operate anytime throughout the year, including before school, after school, summer, intersession, and weekends. What does a school need to have in order to be eligible? The school itself, not the district, needs to be a Title I school with at least 40% free and reduced price meal percentage, also known as FRPM. In addition, they need to be implementing comprehensive support and improvement activities or targeted support as outlined in 20 USC section 6311, D. Or they need to be in need of intervention and support to improve student academic achievements and other outcomes. So what entities are eligible to apply on behalf of an eligible school? Some eligible entities can include LEAs, including school districts and county offices of education, as well as direct funded charter schools. Private schools, provided that they serve public school students. Nonprofit agencies, public entities, city and county government agencies, organizations, or other private entities, institutions of higher education, Native American tribes or tribal organizations, and community-based organizations. We also want to expand on eligible entities that may not apply for funding through this RFA. The first is existing after-school education and safety programs, also known as ACES, that are looking to apply for before-school or equitable access funding. Current ACES programs are able to apply for an after-school-based grant through 21st CCLC or a summer supplemental grant through 21st CCLC. When a school site has both ACES and 21st CCLC after-school-based programs, this is known as a dual-funded site. Next is 21st CCLC grantees looking to increase their funding to the legislative gap. Unfortunately, 21st CCLC grantees are unable to apply for additional funding for an existing grant. If a current grantee is applying, whether funded through ACES or 21st CCLC, they need to be in good standing. What does good standing mean? This means that they have submitted all required reports, including attendance, expenditure, annual performance reports, and evaluations. In addition to this, sites must not have any unresolved annual independent audit findings or federal program monitoring findings. The question we receive often is, if one of the currently funded school sites is considered not in good standing, is the grantee itself considered not in good standing? The answer is yes. All requirements must be met for all of the current schools listed on the grant in order for the grantee to be considered in good standing. Let's take a moment to test your knowledge. True or false? Both ASSETS and 21st CCLC after-school-based programming can operate any day of the year, including weekends, intersession, and during the summer. This is false. Only ASSETS has the flexibility to operate any day of the year. 21st CCLC after-school-based programs must operate after school every day school is in session from the time school ends until at least 6 p.m. and a minimum of 15 hours per week. In order for 21st CCLC elementary and middle schools to operate on weekends or during intersessions in summer, they would also need to have the after-school summer supplemental grant that allows operations outside of the 180 school days.
True or false? Even though we are not officially a Title I school, my school site has a free and reduced price meal percentage of 99%, meaning we are eligible to apply for funding. False. Even though the school may meet the criteria to be Title I, if they are not officially a Title I school, they are ineligible to apply.
True or false? ABC Unified School District received after-school-based funding for 3 elementary schools in Cohort 12 and are interested in applying for the Equitable Access grants for these sites. They are ineligible due to the base programming being funded in a different cohort. True. In order to be eligible to receive an Equitable Access grant, school sites must apply for the after-school-based funding through this RFA. This is because the base programs will expire before Equitable Access grant would. In order to have an Equitable Access grant, a site must have an after-school-based program. Please note that Equitable Access grants are only available for our elementary middle school programs.
What's new in Cohort 13? We have made some changes from Cohort 12 in an effort to make a more comprehensive, clear RFA that is in line with our priorities as a state. We have consulted with several other states administering the 21st CCLC grant as a way to collect data to inform our own continuous quality improvement process. Additionally, we have run these changes by groups of stakeholders, ensuring that they are meeting the needs of the field. The first change is in regards to our Equitable Access grant. In past years, this grant has been available for both 21st CCLC elementary middle school programs, as well as our 21st CCLC ASSETS high school programs. However, after a review of our education code, this grant is only outlined in education code for our 21st CCLC elementary middle school programs. Therefore, the Equitable Access grant is no longer available for our ASSETS programs. The next change is a minimum grant amount. Per ESSA, Section 4204, the minimum grant amount for both 21st CCLC and 21st CCLC ASSETS programs is $50,000 per site, inclusive of all components. What does inclusive of all components mean? This really applies to our 21st CCLC elementary middle school components. If a site is only awarded an after-school base program, they cannot initially be funded less than $50,000. If they are awarded an after-school base, a before-school base, summer supplemental, and equitable access, altogether, they cannot initially receive less than $50,000. One thing to note is that the initial award cannot be less than $50,000. However, if programs do not meet their attendance targets, the site can be reduced to less than $50,000. We have made some significant changes to the co-applicant requirements for this RFA. As you may know, applying with another eligible entity qualifies you to receive a priority item, which we will review later on in this presentation. The new requirements ensure that all partners or applicants listed on the grant have significant involvement in the management, planning, and implementation of the grant. Here we are ensuring that these grants are not what is referred to as pass-through grants. What do the co-applicants need to do that is new for Cohort 13? We have created a form in which each applicant needs to sign, certifying that they understand and will adhere to the requirements of the grant. This also needs to be signed by each principal and the superintendent of the schools applying. After the intent to award is disseminated, usually in the spring, each partner will have to complete a series of virtual trainings and pass corresponding quizzes to ensure they have a solid understanding of the grant requirements and responsibilities. If a partner fails to take the trainings and pass the quizzes with a score of 80% or greater, they will be disqualified from the application process and will not receive the grant. The next major change is when programs charge a fee. In the past, we have identified several types of fees that are collected in order to sustain programming. These include, but are not limited to, application fees, material fees, or monthly tuition fees. Per federal requirements, prior to programs charging fees, they must receive approval from the California Department of Education. As part of the application process, all applicants must sign a form certifying that they understand and will adhere to the requirements put in place for collecting fees. They must also complete a program income narrative providing more detail of the fee collection process and a proposal for fee usage. So what information is included in the narrative portion? The narrative portion must include important information about your fee collection process and intent. This information includes the type of fees, how often fees will be charged, who is charged, what will the fees be used for, how will you track the fees, and how will you ensure students who cannot afford the fees are still able to participate. Prior to completing this section, it is important to note a few requirements. Children cannot be turned away due to their inability to pay. Fees collected must be used to support programming. Fees must be tracked separately than the grant itself. For a full list of requirements, please view the RFA.
We are going to test your knowledge once again. Is the following scenario allowable or unallowable? ABC Unified School District has received permission to charge fees. They will be using the fees collected to hire a program liaison to help the schools collaborate with the after-school program. Is this allowable or unallowable? This is allowable. The purpose of the program liaison is to ensure collaboration between the school and after-school program. This has been proven to help strengthen the relationship between the school and the program, therefore strengthening the program quality.
True or false? ABC Unified School District has partnered with a community-based organization to apply for 21st CCLC funding. The district is the fiscal agent. Therefore, the CBO does not have a responsibility to ensure funds are being expended appropriately. False. Every applicant or partner listed on the grant is legally responsible for all of the schools in the grant. This includes, but is not limited to, the fiscal requirements, programmatic requirements, federal program monitoring and audit findings, education code, the assurances, and of course, program quality.
True or false? Even though the minimum grant amount is $50,000 per site, inclusive of all components, if a site does not meet their attendance targets, they can be reduced below the $50,000. This is true. The next portion of this video will review the 5-step application process. Step 1 is the RFA submission, which is a 2-part requirement. Step 2, application review and evaluation. Step 3, geographic distribution. Step 4 is the funding priority. Step 5 is the free and reduced price meal determinations. The first step is the submission of the RFA. This is a 2-part component. The first part, which is 1A on your slide, is the submission into ASSETS, also known as after-school support and information system. While some items will be submitted electronically into ASSETS, there are pieces that need wet signatures and need a hard copy submission. This is where applicants will download forms, complete, and submit. The forms necessary for submission include cover page, authorized designee, signatures and approvals, off-site program form, private school consultation, funding priority certification, award calculator, DQ form, ESSA assurances, Ed Code assurances, Equitable Access assurances, program, income form, and narrative, co-applicant form. It is important to note that not all the forms be applicable to every application. For example, if you are not applying for the Equitable Access grant, you do not need to sign and submit those assurances. The next step of this requirement is the submission of your program narrative in FAST, also known as Financial Assistance Application Submittal Tool. This portion is submitted electronically through the FAST system. Applicants will need to address each section outlined at the end of this RFA. Let's discuss application narratives. There are 12 sections to the basic program narrative with another narrative for programs applying for equitable access. The program narrative is based on the quality standards for expanded learning in California. The quality standards provide the framework for the online application narratives for both 21st CCLC and ASSETS. Application narratives will be reviewed for quality based on the quality standards embedded in the scoring rubrics. The FAST system outlines the technical requirements for each section, such as character limits. It is important to note that if funded, grantees are expected to carry out the programming that was outlined in the narrative portion. For more information on the quality standards for expanded learning in California, please visit the quality standards site. Narratives are pass-fail. Each of the 12 narrative portions are evaluated separately with the following criteria. A passing application is clear and complete and is sufficient and comprehensive in quality. An application that would not pass is unclear or incomplete with weak, ambiguous, or developing quality. The rubric used to score cannot be requested by the applicant. Applicants must pass at least 6 of the 12 narrative portions in order to advance. Those that pass will move forward to the funding determination.
The second step is the application review and evaluation. Once the CDE receives the information in steps 1A and 1B, they will review each application for completeness and eligibility. From there, applications that are not complete or are ineligible will be disqualified. DQ letters are sent out to those applicants. Applicants who wish to appeal the email notification of the CDE screening disqualification or intent to award decision must submit a letter of appeal to the CDE within 30 days of the CDE's actions. Appeals are limited to the grounds that the CDE's actions violates a state or federal statute or regulation. Let's review grounds for applicant disqualification, which include failure to submit assist-generated forms to the CDE before 4:00 p.m. on November 16, 2021. Failure to upload application narratives into FAST before 4:00 p.m. on November 16, 2021. Identification on the federal debarment list. The federal debarment list can be located at www.dbar.gov OFCCP/regs/preaward/prebarlst.htm. Additional items that get an application disqualified include application submission without an original authorized signature, or if a designee signature without a copy of the governing board resolution or minutes authorizing the designee to accept and sign as a proxy for financial statements and legally binding documents, and a renewing or current grantee school that is not in good standing for fiscal year 2021-2022 at the time the application documents are submitted to the CDE and uploaded into FAST on November 16, 2021. Lastly, all applicants listed on the intent to award will need to complete a series of virtual trainings and pass corresponding assessments by a specified date. This is part of the application process, and if all applicants do not complete these, they will be disqualified. What gets an individual school site disqualified? This list includes not being Title I, not having a verifiable CDS code, or having a free and reduced price meal percentage, or FRPM percentage, less than 40%.
The third step in the process is geographic funding distribution. Each school site in the application will be assigned to one of 6 geographic funding categories: North Urban, North Rural, Central Urban, Central Rural, South Urban, and South Rural. Funding amounts per geographic funding category will be based on the percentage of students that qualify for FRPM compared with the statewide total number of students per geographic category. The purpose of placing sites in a funding category based on location is to allow sites to compete against each other. If you are curious as to where your sites might fall, you can visit www.nces.ed.gov/ccd/school search/. For a quick reference, regions 1 to 3 are considered northern, regions 4 to 7 are considered central, and regions 8 through 11 are southern.
The fourth step in the application process is funding priority. Before we get started reviewing the priorities, we want to cover a few things. Priority is determined by school site, not application. If there are more sites in a priority grouping than available funding, we will determine funding using FRPM percentage. If there is a FRPM percentage tie, we will see which application has passed more of the 12 narrative components. We will only fund equitable access and before-school-based components if an after-school-based program has been funded through this RFA. Let's begin. The priorities for 21st CCLC and ASSETS programs are slightly different. There are a total of 5 priorities for 21st CCLC and a total of 4 possible priorities for our 21st CCLC ASSETS programs. We have taken out one of the priorities from previous cohorts and integrated it into the RFA as a requirement. This includes the requirement for programs to use these funds to supplement and not supplant. The first priority is applicable to both 21st CCLC and ASSETS programs. This is for our applications that are proposing to target schools that are implementing comprehensive or targeted support and improvement activities, or schools determined by the local education agency to be in need of intervention and support. It is important to note that these schools must be Title I with at least 40% FRPM. The second priority item also applies to both 21st CCLC and ASSETS. This priority is for applications that are jointly submitted by at least 2 eligible entities with at least 1 Title I LEA. If an applicant is unable to find a partner to apply with due to unreasonable geographic proximity or a lack of quality, they can write a narrative to the CDE for consideration. It is important to note that a justification narrative for why an applicant is unable to partner with another eligible entity may be considered by the CDE in order to receive priority consideration for this item. The justification narrative must be included in the application materials submitted to the CDE by the application deadline. The justification narrative does not apply to applicants that are able to partner with another eligible entity. The next priority is for our 21st CCLC and ASSETS programs. This priority is for schools that target to serve students who may be at risk for academic failure, dropping out of school, involvement in criminal or delinquent activities, or who lack strong role models. The next priority item is just for our 21st CCLC programs. This priority is for applicants that will provide year-round expanded learning program at the school. Year-round programming includes programming that operates during the summer, intersession, or on the weekends. For this priority, expanded learning programs are defined as state or federally funded programs, also known as ASSETS or 21st CCLC. The next priority is for 21st CCLC only. Applicants will receive a priority item if they have an expiring 21st CCLC grant from Cohort 10. The next priority is for ASSETS only. This priority item is not only for programs who are replacing expiring Cohort 10 grants, but also programs who have been previously funded and are not expiring, but are looking to expand to the legislative cap. It is time to test your knowledge. Is the following true or false? ASSETS programs can apply for 21st CCLC summer supplemental funding without applying for a 21st CCLC after-school-based grant. This is true. ASSETS grantees are eligible to apply for 21st CCLC summer supplemental grants without applying for a base program. Grantees that do not currently have an ASSETS after-school program must apply for a 21st CCLC base program in this RFA.
True or false? An ASSETS school site is eligible to receive a priority item if their grant is expiring, even though they have an unresolved FPM finding and are considered not in good standing. This is sort of a trick question. If a site is considered not in good standing, they will be disqualified.
True or false? Year-round expanded learning programs only refer to ASSETS and 21st CCLC programs and not district-run or fee-based programs. This is true. We only consider these programs because 21st CCLC and ASSETS summer supplemental programs encompass a variety of opportunities, including enrichment, academic, and physical activities to align with the purpose of 21st CCLC.
The last step in the process is FRPM determinations, which are only used in the case of a tie. At this point, the CDE has already verified that the sites have met the 40% FRPM requirement. We begin funding school sites that have the most priorities and fund down until there's no more available funding. If there are more school sites in a priority grouping than available funds, we use FRPM percentage to determine which sites are funded.
Let's review the funding determination process. The funding determination process includes the 5 submission steps for applicants, plus additional steps integrated into the process for the CDE to determine funding. Here are the complete 9 steps for funding determination. 1. Application and narrative submission. 2. The CDE reviews for eligibility and completeness. 3. Disqualification letters are disseminated. 4. Program narratives are read and passed or failed. 5. Each site is placed in one of 6 geographic funding locations. 6. Funding priority is determined for each site. 7. In the case of a tie, FRPM percentage is used. 8. The intent to award is disseminated. Lastly, 9. Training videos and quizzes must be completed.
Let's take a moment to review the appeals process. There are two opportunities for applicants to submit an official appeal. The first is after the initial DQ process, which is step 2. This is when the CDE reviews applications for completeness and eligibility. These appeals are reviewed by the CDE's legal team and are examined strictly on the grounds that the CDE's actions has violated state or federal statutes or regulations. The second appeal process is after the intent to award is disseminated. Similar to the first process, a letter appeal needs to be submitted to the CDE within 30 days. For this second appeal process, a panel is put together to review the appeal. Again, they are reviewing on the grounds that the CDE's actions has violated state or federal statutes or regulations. The panel will review the appeal and make a decision and provide written notification within 30 calendar days.
On your screen now are helpful tools and information. We strongly encourage each potential applicant to thoroughly review the RFA prior to emailing the RFA help desk, Assist help desk, or FAST help desk. If you still have not found your answer, we strongly recommend the applicant reviews the RFA FAQs and the general FAQs located on the Expanded Learning Division's website under Laws and Policy. The EXLD RFA help desk email is 21st and ASSETS RFA at cde.ca.gov. The Assist help desk is assist at cde.ca.gov. And the FAST help desk is FAAST_admin at waterboards.ca.gov. We thank you for your time and consideration in applying for the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant.